Hello and welcome to Fresh Perspectives. My name is Gail and I have a really interesting guest for today. She is an astrologer, she's into metaphysics, she's a musician, and she's also a marriage and family counselor. Is that correct? Her name is Maxine Perchuck. Thank you, Maxine, for agreeing to be on Fresh Perspectives today. I've been really looking forward to this interview because the things you do are such interesting topics to me.
Thank you.
Now, tell us something about yourself, things like your education and so forth.
Well, yeah, I really had a long, winding road. It's taken me so many years to realize that, I hate to sound cliche, that my own inner calling is being an astrologer and helping other people, find their ways, sort of finding their soul blueprint. And in terms of I've really had education, like formal education, as well as my own self-study. I have several bachelor's degrees, psychology, women's studies, music. I have several master's degrees. I was a school psychologist, a licensed marriage and family therapist. I was a probation officer. I was a social worker, musician, you name it, I've done it. And the thing that I've found most rewarding is astrology. I've also studied a number of metaphysical subjects, been a disciple, studied palm reading, crystals, pretty much every metaphysical discipline. But the one that's closest to my heart is astrology. It combines the psychological with the spiritual and the ability to answer some questions for people, help them, give them support that they're on their path. Because so often it's about that people sometimes just need to know that, they're going in the right direction.
Yeah, it really is good to be able to help other people. Now, I know that you don't have the same accent that we do around here. Did you come here from the New York City area somewhere?
Exactly. Originally, Brooklyn, New York, and then for the last decade, it was Staten Island.
Oh, okay. So you pretty much spent your life around that part of the state then, most of it.
I did, but this is such a nice change.
Mm-hmm. And what made you pick this area?
Lilydale.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Lilydale, New York. I've been coming summer times for quite a number of years, and taking class in mediumship and other metaphysical classes, and just enjoying the area. The grounds. I don't know if you've been to the grounds, but
not too often. I haven't been. I actually wind up spending more time at Chautauqua, but. Now that I'm maybe I could come over to visit you sometimes. Now that you're in Lilydale,
it's really like I said, we just landed there yesterday. It's lucky that that my clothes somehow match because I found them in the different boxes on the 3 flights. But it's really such a the grounds itself, just the whole. Well, may I say that you have Moon in Cancer? Mm-hmm. May I reveal that to the
yes,
the audience?
Yes.
Yeah, which means that you have such great sensitivity. You would just love walking around the grounds.
Oh yes, I know I would. And I know a few different people from over there. You know, like Colleen Vanderzijden comes on once a year and so forth. And we have a lot of fun doing the episodes with her. Okay, so you did recently, you were in Lakewood when you first got here, and you just...
That's right.
Just during the last week or so, you moved to Lilydale.
Yeah, we got here, in fact, January 8th of last year, and we spent, 18 months in Lakewood. Mm-hmm. And we came up here, like I said, to be near Lilydale, but even though it was such a short distance, it was such an impasse in regard to involving myself with activities at Lilydale, because it's difficult for me to drive at night.
Oh, okay.
So all of a sudden there was so much that I couldn't do. It was like I might as well have been, back in Brooklyn for...
Mm-hmm. So you bought a house in Lilydale.
Yes.
And it came with a store.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the funniest thing. It's a store called Once Upon a Thursday.
Once Upon a Thursday.
And it's a spiritual gift shop. So we've continued similar inventory as the last owner had. Lots of
a lot of the person's inventory
the similar
is still
inventory.
there.
Right. And we've supplemented it, but it's still the same tone. Gongs, chimes, incense, crystals, archangel statues. Just a lot of the whole bent is it's a spiritual bent. All kinds of accessories and candles, and it's a great vibe in the store. I mean, ultimately, I would like to turn it into be the home of Inner Calling Astrology, the store, versus just selling gifts.
Oh yes, of course. It sounds really interesting, and I really do want to come over sometime and
you should come
sometime and see it. I don't know. The only times I've really been over there is not during the summer season. How hard is it to get onto the grounds there?
Well, during the season is really the time you want to be there, because all day there are activities, and most of them, the activities themselves, are free. Have you ever heard of the Stump?
Yes, I have heard of it.
So there are several sites that where the mediums give messages in gallery style, and then there are services during the day, and there's the healing temple, and whatever other activities or classes are going on that day. So there are a number of things that are free, and then there are some special classes that you'd have to pay an additional charge for. But to get in the gate during the summer, it's $15.
$15. That's not bad.
No.
Okay. Well, now we can get on to the topic of the day. So I was going to ask you to tell us the difference between just reading those little paragraph-sized horoscopes in a newspaper and a magazine. The difference between that and actually having a professional like you do our charts for us. Because, I know you're going to say that it's because those little paragraphs supposedly apply to everybody on that birth date, which isn't the case. Do you want to explain that to us?
Sure. In the newspapers, what you're talking about, the little blurbs, they generally refer to what's called the sun sign. I mean, everybody knows the sun sign. Maybe they haven't thought about the idea that what the sun sign means is where the sun was, what sign the sun was in at the time of your birth. We just take for granted, oh, my sign is Virgo, my sign is Capricorn.
Oh, is that what you are?
Yeah, I'm a
Capricorn.
another earth sign.
Yeah, that's one of the signs that's supposed to be good to be friends with for Virgos. I think
Well,
I've heard that.
See, Virgos and Capricorns are both sun signs. They are sun signs, but what I mean is they're both, in regard to element, they're earth signs. And what the theory is that earth signs, there's one more earth sign, Taurus, and that they work as a team and have something to offer one another. So for instance, as a Capricorn, we like to, Capricorn is known for not wanting to have a day job. Capricorn wants to be in the community what they are inside. And career and accomplishment is very important to them. And the way that the Virgo energy works well with that is Virgo, as I was talking to you about before, is so interested in becoming competent at something. And so Virgo is willing to study and hone a skill, and that, of course, works so well with wanting to accomplish your career goal. And then, while we're talking about it, Taurus, the other earth sign, Taurus is known, the way it plays into this triad, is that Taurus has great animal instinct. So, you know, they say that Capricorn is the goat wanting to climb the mountain. Where Capricorn can get in trouble is, what if they choose the wrong mountain?
Oh,
right?
okay.
But because Capricorns are stoic and they'll just keep on treading on regardless. You know, when I think of Capricorn, I think of mush dogs, you know, and the Iditarod.
Oh, the Huskies?
Well, the Iditarod. So
okay.
you're in Alaska and you're going through the tundra and you're all night. That's the kind of determination Capricorn can bring.
Oh.
But what happens when Capricorn chooses the wrong mountain to climb and trudges along anyway? Well, they're a miserable goat, and then the negative side of Capricorn comes out, which is being controlling. And anyway, I've really made quite a long way around to my point. The goal of Taurus, because of Taurus's great instinct, animal instinct, knowing that ability to choose what is really near and dear to the heart is the job of the Taurus.
Oh, okay.
Then Virgo takes the job of learning the craft in service of Capricorn's goal of climbing the mountain that they choose.
Oh, okay, wow. That's quite a nice story. So anyways, there's other factors.
Oh, but you know what? I completely didn't answer the question.
No.
Okay, so the answer is, okay, yeah, that was really the long way around. Well, you know what? It's Jupiter, which is about expansion, has just entered the sign of Gemini, which is all about intellect and thought. Jupiter is expansion, and Gemini loves non sequiturs and stream of consciousness. And I think what I just displayed here was an example of Jupiter and Gemini getting carried away with a stream of consciousness and just taking it where it went. So let me get back to the question that you actually asked about. So yes, when people think of astrology, they normally think of what's called the sun sign, and they find it in the newspaper. And it's too narrow. It's not. The sun is extremely important, but to just read it in isolation is is too narrow. And what people should know is that there's 9 other planets, and they're all positioned around the zodiac wheel and have different influences on someone. And so it's really a synthesis of all the planets that will give you a real feel for the person and what they're trying to accomplish this life. Just simply reading the sun sign, it tells you a little something, but it's so narrow. But what would help, now here's something that would help when people read what their sign is in the newspaper. If they can find out what house that sun sign lives in, then they've got a whole lot more information.
Oh, yeah.
Does that make any sense to you?
Yes, it does. It does.
Because, there are 12 houses. And so, for instance, can I talk about yours?
Oh, yes, I was going to have you talk about about what you found out about.
I took a quick look and I saw that, let me double check before I lie.
Oh, okay.
I can't trust my memory. Oh, okay, here we go. So your sun, for instance, is in the house of community. So your sole intention was to be a strong voice in the community.
When I was born, you mean?
Exactly.
It was what I chose before I came in here, before I was born.
That's right.
Oh, okay.
Well, the theory would be you and your spirit guide would have reviewed what life lessons you want to tackle.
And I've certainly tackled a lot of life lessons. So, this is really interesting.
Wait, let me go back one more time. Okay, so you're right. So with your sun in the 11th house of community, it was clear you wanted to shine in the area of community. You wanted to be of service to the community. Oh, well, especially it's Virgo.
Well, and Virgo is known as the sign of health. And, I started getting really interested in living a healthier life when I was in my 20s. I got involved with yoga and going vegetarian and stayed away from drinking alcoholic beverages and smoking and all those kinds of
that's perfect.
things. I mean, I'm perfect that way as a Virgo. And eventually I went totally vegan, and now I'm one of the people that puts on the Chautauqua County Vegetarian Vegan Society.
I was just going to say, you're exactly right. Virgo, one of the things that Virgo is associated with is health. And so with your Virgo in the 11th house of community, you would want to bring that information to the community.
That's right. In fact, I've had a lot of nutrition experts and like that on Fresh Perspectives. As much as I can. I'm concerned about the environment, and I want people to take really good care of that, so that, with these problems we've been having in the environment lately and everything, there's so many things like that that are so important that I want people to know about.
Yes, and when you look at your chart, you can see it was important for you to be of service to the community by virtue of two things. Not only do you have the sun in Virgo, which is all about being of service, you've got it in the house of the community and wanting to give to the community. So when you see things repeated in a chart, you take them more seriously. It's like, okay, we've looked at your chart for a moment, we've already seen twice your investment in being of service to the community.
And then you said about my moon being in Cancer.
That's right, the moon.
And as I told you before we started recording, that that my husband's sun sign is Cancer. So there's a connection there. That might have been what drew us together to begin with years ago.
Yes, that's very common that people share important placements like that. That often you'll see partners, my sun in Capricorn, I get involved with someone with a Capricorn rising. Well, actually, that's true. Actually, that's exactly true. And in your case, your moon is in Cancer and your husband's sun is in Cancer. That kind of crossover is very common. You have, because you have to have things in common. I mean, it's also very important that there are more tense aspects between planets to facilitate some growth individually and between the two of you. But yeah, but to have some key placements in your chart that are in easy aspect or conjunct, that's very helpful to have a basic understanding with the person that you're with.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we do enjoy a lot of the same things, you know, like where we live.
Right, which we mentioned as a Cancer, the home would be so important. A Cancer is, and I'm sure your husband is very sensitive individual. Again, the Cancer is the mother, the healer, the one who looks inside themselves. And Cancer is very cautious. There's a caution.
Yeah, I think I know what you mean. Sometimes if I ask him a question, there's a pause where I have to kind of like wait for him to form the answer before he says it, it seems like making sure he says the right thing.
Well, there's a caution, there's a sensitivity, and again, the home is so important to a Cancer. A Cancer wants to be able to shut the door behind them and know that they're safe, and shake off the day's vibes and stresses, and because of the great sensitivity, as I was telling you before, you could be passing someone on the street, and then suddenly your mood changes and you have no idea why. Well, it's as far-fetched as it sounds. You could have picked up that person's vibe just because of the great sensitivity. Yeah,
I know. Sometimes I feel emotionally a certain way, but can't explain why I feel that way.
I would imagine that when you're with people and they're pretending to feel one way but actually feel another way, that you're actually feeling what their true feeling is rather than what they're trying to project.
Well, you know, a lot of things come through in people's body language. They may be saying one thing, but you're seeing an expression or a gesture or something that looks the opposite.
Well, that's, you know, it's funny you say it. Of course, I'm analyzing you astrologically as you're saying it, and I'm thinking to myself, the sun in Virgo is the one that's thinking. That's the part of you that's thinking, and is, you know, because Virgo has such a great attention to detail. So someone is saying something, and the Virgo part of you is saying, well, they're saying this, but they're motioning this way. You know, you're in your head. But the moon part of you, the moon in Cancer, that's almost the opposite of sun in Virgo. Pure feeling. On a feeling level, you're actually just feeling it. The sun in Virgo might be explaining it, but your moon in Virgo, your heart, your feelings, is what's really just experiencing it. Would you say that sounds right?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. It's almost like I don't know if it's because I've been through a certain amount of problems in my own life or what, but I can feel very sad if somebody is, well, it's hard to explain what I mean. If somebody is suffering for some reason or another, it's like it's kind of like I wish that they didn't have to be going through what they're going through.
Well, mooning. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, it's like, it's just and a lot of the times you'd like to help maybe that person, but you're powerless to do anything about it. Even if you could give advice to somebody that would help, a lot of the time they won't accept your advice or do any, even though it would benefit them. And that's kind of a sadness for me too. If I'm trying to be helpful to somebody, but they won't do what they have to do to help themselves. So.
Yes, cancer people suffer on behalf of other people. Mm-hmm. Cancer is known as the mother and the healer, mm-hmm. and known for you're a magnet for strays, mm-hmm. literally and figuratively. Mm-hmm. I always caution cancer people to remember to choose people and friends that have the same depth and caring, because otherwise cancer can find themselves, what's the word? Finding people that are too dependent on them and draining them.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And it not being a reciprocal mm-hmm. relationship. Cancers are known for making that mistake. They start out with such goodness of just wanting to be healing, but then everybody, not everybody, that's a gross overgeneralization, but people that can take advantage of that.
Oh yeah, and they will.
That, yeah, and so I always caution against being aware of that, and not only is it draining, but there's another function of it for the cancer person, because, like I said, cancer is very cautious, and as much as they open their heart to other people and want to be a sounding board for other people, and here, sit, let me give you some tea, you want to make people feel comfortable at home and healed. Sometimes cancers don't want to reveal themselves because of that great caution, because of a past in which opening themselves might have brought in, injury, emotional injury. There's such a caution with cancer people. So they sort of hide out in the role of healer.
Oh,
and,
okay.
I'm not saying it's inauthentic being a healer, they are, but you can take anything to an extreme. Mm-hmm. And then the function that it can play is, now I'll just be the healer. I won't admit when something is wrong with me, and find someone of equal depth to listen to me mm-hmm. and give me healing advice mm-hmm. and mm-hmm. hear me, because cancers don't often like to expose themselves. Do you find sometimes that's so, or you've gotten past that, or?
Yeah, of course, in my case, it's the moon that's in Cancer.
Yes, that the moon is the feeling part of you.
Yeah, and
the heart.
I think so. Somewhere along the line, I did have to realize, not to be sucked into other people's trips. So,
Yeah, it's funny, you know, I had an astrologer friend who used to make a joke that if they were interested in a woman who was a Cancer, rather than have a facade of like bravado, they would become more waif-like, you know, to attract that motherly, maternal part. Yeah.
To attract the Cancer
Yeah.
person. I hadn't heard that before, but that's pretty interesting. Now, when you're doing someone's chart for them, you say that it is possible to go back, tap into, find out. Well, it has to do with past incarnations.
Right.
Yeah, I'm finding trouble forming the way I want to word this conversation. And to find out when we returned to a human body, why we chose the experiences and relationships that we were going to have in this incarnation.
Well, in regard to the theories around the looking for past life markers in the chart, so the theory is that everything in our chart is like a lesson plan. So, you know, if you're in second grade, well, then you move on. You know, you've learned certain things, and now you're in third grade, and your lesson plan is different. In regard to past lives, it's the point that we look at is called the South Node, and that represents an area of unresolved issues from a past life. It doesn't have to be the one just prior to coming in. Any past life that we're now ready to heal. And then you look to the what's called the North Node for sort of the prescription for healing.
Okay, and so that helps us to.
Well, that's why we've come in.
Yeah.
Right? We've come in with some would say that the North Node is the most crucial point in our chart because that's what we're aiming for. That's what we're not experienced there, but it's the new energy that we want to bring in. It's the new lesson we want to learn. And then with our other planets, theoretically, are in the positions they are to support moving towards that North Node, the new kinds of, the next evolutionary step for us.
Okay. Yeah,
Is it sort of a difficult idea to swallow?
Not for me. I was going to mention, I would have brought it with me. There was a book that I found at a used book sale at one of the libraries back in November. And I picked up a book. I would have brought it with me, but it is raining so heavily outside. I did not want to run the risk of bringing it out in the heavy rain or anything. And it deals with past lifetimes and so forth. It's written by a professional hypnotist who can.
Oh, do you know their name?
It's not popping into my head at the moment, but the name of the book is Your Soul's Gift, was part of the title. And the book basically takes people through several different people through things that happened in past lifetimes and how it applies to what they're going through now. And he had the help of mediums to get through to other people who were in that person's lifetime and so forth. Yeah, it's a really interesting
And what was the name?
book. Your Soul's Gift.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and do you know the author? Do you remember the author? I'll look it up.
Well, that's why I kind of would have liked to have brought it with me, because I've read so many books, that it's hard to keep track of.
Yeah, I've read a bunch of books about past life regression and in between life regression. And actually, I did a week-long workshop some years ago in past life regression with Dr. Brian Weiss.
Oh, that last name sounds
He's written
familiar.
a number of books on the past life regression. He's a psychiatrist who stumbled onto the concept when he was leading someone back in their childhood hypnotically, and then she ended up in a prior life instead of in her childhood.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So I think the thing that struck me was some of these weird experiences that people have had in this life, and like I think the one that really, some of the stories when I was reading them, I literally broke down and cried. Mm-hmm. Because it was like this one woman, she had an 18-year-old son, and her husband had died. The boy's father had died a few years earlier, and the boy suffered through his teen years with depression and this and that and the other thing, and then one morning she finds that the boy has committed suicide. He's hung himself. And by the time she finds him, of course, it's too late to stop the death, she had found him in the attic. And some of the stories like that actually, I actually broke down and cried over some of them.
And how the story persists throughout lifetimes, you mean? Mm-hmm. The same theme.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, anyway, they were able to get through with a medium to him, and apparently when he first arrived on the other side, he was very confused and like that, and realized he had just done something that he couldn't undo. Because once you've taken your life, you can't just pop back into it, and all of a sudden he's on the other side and missing his friends and like that. And so it was...
Well, it sounds like the book made a big impact on you.
It did. It really did, yeah.
Now, so speaking of past life, would you like me to take a quick look at...
At mine?
Yeah.
Yes,
at the markers?
yes. I would love to go there.
Okay, let's see what we've got. Okay. Oh, it's interesting. Okay, it's on the cusp. Okay, this is interesting. Your south node, that's what describes the unresolved issues.
Oh, okay.
So it also describes areas that you've had a great amount of strength and facility for. So for instance, your south node is in Gemini, which tells me that you have over lives really developed your intellectual powers.
Yeah.
Your language ability, your intellect, your ability to notice things?
Well, you know, I think that most of that, I achieved as an adult. I was too distracted by the way other people were treating me at times when I was a little girl to really function on that level.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying, yes, and I don't want to negate that, of course. What happens to us emotionally, especially with the moon in Cancer, that great sensitivity that you have. But what I'm saying is that whether it was awakened or functioning or not, that intellect and language ability, that was already there in place, just ready to be awakened.
Oh, I see. When the time was right.
Because you've already developed that very much in your prior lives. The other thing about Gemini can now we're talking about as the South Node, the thing that you want to resolve. So even though there are many great qualities to Gemini, we have to think on the side of, well, what may have gone wrong? What are you trying to resolve? And one thing about Gemini is that Gemini can find so many things interesting that they can lose track of an overarching idea or goal. Because, you know, let's say you want to get from here to the other side of the garden. That's your goal, but you're meeting someone at the other side of the garden. But along the way, a Gemini, you know, notices everything.
Oh, yeah.
so it's like, so you started out, you want to meet your friend on time, but like, oh, look at that beautiful tiger lily, and oh my goodness, how long must this tree have been in here to have all those rings? Oh my gosh, what, you know.
I know.
So
that is very familiar.
Right, and so
yeah.
So by the time, by the time you get to the other side, maybe you're halfway through and you say, oh, wasn't I supposed to be meeting someone? And then you go back into, oh, look at the squirrel. Oh, maybe I should go get nuts for that squirrel. It looks hungry. And, you know, maybe, I mean, I'm obviously exaggerating.
I'm thinking that maybe the squirrel knows how to find its own nuts, but I probably wouldn't go that far.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, you know, that's what I'm saying. Obviously, I'm exaggerating to be silly and make the point that Gemini can go off, go off the beaten path and go down different roads, and that kind of inquiry is fascinating. But sometimes it doesn't serve an overarching goal. What am I here for? What's important to me? What too much activity can sabotage a sense of meaning and purpose. Because if you're interested in everything, well, who are you, and what is your purpose and meaning here?
Yeah. You know, there are a lot of things that I find interesting, and I obviously cannot participate with all of them because there's not enough time. Basically.
Right, but Gemini wants to.
Exactly, you know, and I wish I could, but you know, like, I mean, I can have a certain amount of things that I want to accomplish within the week, but usually don't get 100% of them accomplished because it's not possible to fit them all in.
Yeah. So that Gemini, that describes the past life feel, the great activity, the great intellect, the wandering attention.
Mm-hmm.
And so now you've made strides in that area. Those are strengths for you. They come naturally, that learning ability. Gemini, it's all about asking questions, and here you are asking questions.
Right, right. Yeah.
But now this life, with what's called the North Node in Sagittarius, now the North Node is what you're aiming for. The Gemini is the strengths that you've come in with, but also the unresolved issue.
Mm-hmm.
And then Sagittarius is the North Node, which can feel, the North Node can feel unfamiliar. It's but exciting, because you're not used to doing it. You know, it's like a 1-year-old who, like, they take their first step and it's like, ooh, I'm not used to this, whoop.
And then they fall down,
then you
yeah.
fall over. That's what it's like to try to live out that North Node, because there's a certain vulnerability you feel when you're trying to live that out, because you're not used to it and you feel like a beginner. You know, we all want to feel like experts. So when you're in your Gemini head and asking questions and learning and noticing things, that's what you're used to, and you're a professional Gemini. But you're a novice Sagittarius. And the goal of Sagittarius, well, it's interesting because they both want a lot of experience. Sagittarius wants to develop a philosophy of life that they can believe in. Sagittarius, more than any other sign, wants to live according to their truest values. And finding out what those values are takes a lot of exploration and discovery. And so it's so interesting that you're using your Geminian curiosity and ability to ask the right questions in service of finding out what's your own personal code of ethics. And I think what you do here is all part of that. It's like you parse out what different people say and how much of that do I believe, and what doesn't feel right to me, and then eventually you gather it all together and you're making up your own personal code of ethics and values.
Yeah. I also, some of the things, when I'm listening to the news, I probably wouldn't pay attention to it too much. But my husband turns the radio on, so I'm hearing stuff, and it becomes so obvious to me, these mistakes that people are making that I'm hearing about in the news. And, things would be going a lot better, if 4 years ago or whatever, they had done this instead of that. I can kind of look back sometimes and see where a wrong decision was made by a group of people, with them not being able to see ahead a few years into the future, what kind of consequences might become of this. So, things like that that's that noticing everything part of it that you were mentioning, I guess.
Well, and it sounds like it's also part of the Sagittarius, that Sagittarian interest in living by a code of ethics. That you're saying to yourself, well, if they had chosen the morally appropriate path, we wouldn't be here, because some of your focus is on what's right versus wrong.
Yeah, yeah. So there's so much, it's so complicated, isn't it? It really is. By the way, before we get to the end of the program, I really should have you let people know how they can get a hold of you. Would you like to mention that to the viewing audience?
Sure. They can very simply get on my website, which is www.innercallingastrology.com. Yes, you just have to Google Inner Calling Astrology. They can also see some of my YouTube videos.
Oh, you have YouTube videos.
I do.
Oh, okay.
I have one, an analysis of Lucille Ball's chart. I have another full reading I did, an hour and a half reading that I posted. I started doing the sun signs, so I have Aries and Taurus, just shorter clips, 19, 20 minutes, to give people the feel of what each sign is. But because of the moving, I'm so behind in Gemini. I should have had Gemini out before Gemini season ended, but relocating has set me back. So
yeah. Well, that's a lot of hard work, moving, and
yeah, it really is. So I just wanted to say, excuse me for just a second. So you can find you just go to YouTube and log in with Inner Calling Astrology, and you'll find my videos. And the instructions for making appointments are on the site.
Oh, okay.
And the number to call.
Okay, that sounds really good. I imagine there is a lot more you could tell me about myself if there's a complete chart way of doing the chart.
Right.
There probably is a lot more information that I could get if I had you do my chart.
Oh, certainly.
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting. I mean, I've just talking to you here, I've learned some things about myself that I maybe didn't quite comprehend before, and I do appreciate that. Let's see. What advice could you give to people who might be interested in going into the kind of work that you do? I mean, there probably isn't time to talk about all of the kinds of work you do in these last few minutes, but
okay, in terms of the type of work that I do, I just want to say there are different types of charts. There's the natal chart, which is basically saying, okay, these are your strengths and weaknesses, this is what you've come in to learn this life, the general lesson plan for the life. And then, of course, there are what's called predictive charts. I don't use the word predictive, I use more of, in regard to what's going on in the stars now, it affects everyone's chart differently. And basically what that is those are opportunities for new growth. So I can look at a chart and say, oh, okay, well, this looks like this is coming up for you to have an opportunity for this, or this is an opportunity. You understand what I'm saying. And then there's also what's called synastry charts, where you put the charts of, let's say, you and your husband together, and you say,
oh, okay.
And you can see where there'll be a natural ease, and then where there might be some tension, and how to use that to better understand your relationship.
Oh, yeah, that would be really very interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
And you know what is even more fascinating? There's something called a composite chart. What that is there's a whole other chart. It's not your chart, it's not his chart. It's the two of them together making up a completely third chart. And those are what's guidelines for what you're trying to accomplish as a couple. And it may have nothing to do with you as an individual. That's what's so fascinating about you. And if you had a different partner, then your composite chart would be different and you would have a different goal for the relationship. It's a fascinating thing.
Yeah.
Oh, and I didn't answer you. In terms of someone who wants to learn astrology,
Yes.
My best recommendation would be to go online. There are a couple of main astrology schools. One is called Astrology University. Another is called the Kepler College. And the one that my teacher is Stephen Forrest. He calls his school the Forrest Center for Evolutionary Astrology.
Oh.
And that's my favorite because, I really lean towards evolutionary astrology versus any other discipline.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I've only named three. Those are three quite popular alternatives. But I would definitely recommend people start there, at those three.
Wow. Yeah. Now, during the last minute here, I know you're probably going to do a program with me on your music sometime, I hope.
Sure, why not?
What kind of music do you do? Do you play musical instruments?
I'm a singer-songwriter guitarist.
Singer-songwriter guitarist. Okay. Would you be willing to perform some music for us on Fresh Perspectives?
Maybe so. Let me think. Let me think about it.
Well, I mean, obviously, you've got an education in several subjects.
Well, and music as well.
And right. And so we could do several episodes of Fresh Perspectives. I usually do have my guests come back on from time to time once I've had them the first time. So,
well, maybe so. Maybe so. Yeah.
Okay. Well, okay, that would be fun. We'll have to talk about that over the summer here. And we've come to the end of another episode of Fresh Perspectives, and this has been a very meaningful an interview for me. You've helped me really see things. And so thank you for participating on Fresh Perspectives today. And I will see those of you in the viewing audience when I do the next episode.